another Fox News alert tonight. We've just learned that one of the attorneys for the anonymous whistleblower who started this impeachment insanity has deep ties to the Democrats. Attorney Andrew Bakaj, who worked for both Chuck Schumer and Hillary Clinton back in 2001. He's also a deep state alum who for years worked at the CIA and the Defense Department. And that's not all. As we told you earlier, senior officials telling Fox that the Trump administration will also release a document tomorrow showing the Intel Community Inspector General found the whistleblower had political bias in favor of a rival candidate. Joining me now is Andy McCarthy, former U.S. Attorney, Fox News contributor, and author of Ball of Collusion, as well as Chris Hahn, former aide to Senator Chuck Schumer, and host of the Aggressive Progressive podcast. Andy, let's start with you. Rudy's going to be joining us again later on in the hour. Now, that would all seem to complicate, I should say, matters here, wouldn't it? If there's political bias that is already recognized and documented?
Well, it would be something that you'd have to disclose if he was a relevant witness, Laura, but I don't know why, frankly, anybody cares much about the whistleblower anymore. I know the Democrats want the whistleblower on. As someone who used to try cases, once you have the evidence that the whistleblower was blowing the whistle about, the whistleblower becomes irrelevant. So if it turns out that the whistleblower's problem was the exchange or the communication between President Trump and President Zelensky in a belief that there was a quid pro quo, tomorrow we're going to have this transcript that's been reported. Once the transcript is public, Laura, what is the difference between you and me and the whistleblower? What's the difference? We'll all have heard the transcript and we'll be able to make up our own minds about it.
Well, it's interesting to know who's getting second and third hand information on calls that the president's having with foreign leaders. I find that.
Well, yeah,
that's a totally different
problem.
Yeah, but it's a problem, as John, you and others have talked about. It's a real problem for forget Trump, presidents going forward. But Chris Hahn, let's go to you, because look, there are documents that are coming out, unredacted transcripts, IG report, pretty much everything the Democrats asked for, it's all coming out. Why pull the trigger on the impeachment inquiry today, the resolution, it's building? Why do it today? Why not wait until the documents are out and then everyone can make their judgment?
You know, nobody trusts that the notes that were taken by the president's staff that are being called a transcript are everything that was said on those calls. We would like to hear from this witness that, for some reason, Barr doesn't want to let us hear from, even though that's the law.
Yeah.
And I just heard the president's personal political attorney say that he was directed by the State Department to go meet with the Ukraine to get evidence on the president's political opponent. Now remember, the Republicans controlled Congress for much of the Obama administration and the first 2 years of the Trump administration, and they investigated Hillary Clinton and Obama all the time, and we never heard of any of this. Yet Rudy Giuliani, who hasn't practiced political criminal law since the early 80s, is now saying he has evidence, he has all this information, he's making things up, and if the Bidens weren't public figures, it would be libelous, and I'm sure my friend, the former U.S. attorney, would agree with that.
Well, first of all, Rudy is listening, and he'll respond to what you just said, Chris, but we let you go on. Of course, the Trump administration did say, by the way, that it's fine to have the witness, the whistleblower testify. They have no problem with it. So that's all going to happen. So all that energy and emotion you got up, it's all happening. So getting back to the point, Andy, hold on. I'll ask Andy. I got you. Take a breath. Andy, go. I'm sorry. This is why Andy does. Andy likes the more calm shows. But Andy,
you have been polite to me.
You just heard from Chris in his viewpoint here that Rudy Giuliani involved in this. That's the problem, and he's trying to, put pressure on a foreign government to get dirt on a rival of the president. So, is there a legal problem with that?
Look, Laura, I think this is all going to be investigated. I've heard Rudy now talk about this for weeks. He's been very open about what he's been doing and why he's been doing it. He's been sometimes very surprisingly open about it. But as he pointed out to you, he's not showing all his cards at this point. He may not have practiced criminal law. I'm not sure if that's right since the 1980s, but since I was there in the 1980s, I can tell you he's an extraordinary criminal investigator. So, look, it's all going to be investigated, as you point out. The witnesses are being made available. Whatever this transcript is, tomorrow will be made available, and we'll see.
Okay, I'm going to bring Rudy back in. Rudy, you've been listening to this conversation.
Yeah, I sure have, and I'd like to say
I'd
like to say, Mr. Hahn, I should sue you for libel because you irresponsibly said.
Please.
Yeah, well, you actually usually say incredibly stupid things.
You're a public figure.
Yeah, and by the way, do you have any idea that the State
So
Department?
then you know the libel
Okay, hold
law.
on.
Shut up,
Rudy.
no libel law.
Let Rudy-
Shut up.
Okay, hold on.
Shut up.
Hold
You
on.
don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about, idiot.
I do.
The state? No, you don't. You just
Mr. Mayor,
lied.
I wish you would stop.
You lied,
I
my
wish you
friend.
would stop, Mr.
You
Mayor.
well, why don't you tell him to? Why don't you tell
I
him?
wish you would stop.
Why don't you tell him to keep his mouth shut so we can tell the truth?
Yeah, Chris,
okay?
just let Rudy
Just keep
say
your
it,
lying
then you
mouth
can
shut.
respond.
Okay, he
Try to
said.
keep it on facts.
He said to me. He said about me that I was asked by the State Department to go dig up political dirt on Trump's opponent. Totally false. The State Department asked me.
Just said it.
No, I didn't. You did, you liar.
Just
You did.
finish. Just let him
Tell
finish,
him.
then you can respond.
Turn him off so I can speak.
Okay,
I do
just-
not want to be interrupted
Okay, let's
by
just
that.
let Rudy speak, and then
That's
we can...
from that
Yeah.
serial liar. So, here's why I was asked by the State Department. It's all documented. They called me to facilitate a meeting between the president and Mr. Zelensky to help them do that. I met with the representative of Mr. Zelensky. We never discussed any kind of pressure about a criminal case. We never discussed any kind of quid pro quo or pressure. So I am more than willing to have anybody talk to the person that I talk to. Plus, everybody on the Ukraine side has said they weren't pressured, which they weren't. My conversation was to help the State Department facilitate a meeting. An Ambassador Volker called me. He asked me to do it. He set up the meeting or helped me to set it up. I debriefed them 3 times in great detail about it. And if that incredibly irresponsible person thinks that I would ever do anything that's illegal or unethical, maybe I'm kind of just a simple little lawyer and I'm not very good at criminal cases or criminal investigation. But I sure as heck know how to protect myself and my client. It was a perfectly appropriate, perfectly legitimate, and a completely authorized communication. And it's all documented. And once again, the Democrats just make false charges. And unfortunately, they've gotten used to it because the media enables them in doing that.
I want to read something, Rudy, and Andy McCarthy and Chrissy
I
will
don't know
jump in
why
on
you
this.
have that man on. I mean, it's irresponsible to say things about somebody when you don't know what you are talking about.
I'm gonna read something and then let Andy respond to this.
You don't know what you're talking about. You don't have any idea what you're talking about.
You just said.
I did not say the state.
You just said, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, guys,
you
gotta
sure
stop.
did. Read
Yeah.
the transcript.
I read the transcript. I know the transcript. I know why I was asked to do it.
Of this show.
And you make irresponsible claims against the president and Republicans all the time because you
All right, we've
don't
established
have
that you don't like each
integrity,
other.
my
Let's
friend.
move on. Let's move on to this. I want to ask. This is a substantive
What a
point
disgrace.
about the underlying Hunter Biden issue. And Andy McCarthy, I'd like you to chime in here. This is from the Washington Post tonight. They say the idea that this was, that Biden was trying to get this investigation dropped. The allegations were baseless, writes the Washington Post. Though Hunter Biden had served on the Burisma board for 5 years, a questionable decision given his father's influential position, he was never accused of any wrongdoing by Ukrainian authorities. The probe had been shelved before any action by the vice president. And the elder Biden's efforts involved removing a prosecutor widely criticized by the West for failing to tackle corruption. Andy, that's what the Democrats say about this, that this prosecutor was, someone that was widely disliked as a corrupt person. So Biden was following that. And you say?
I say that's why God made investigations. Let's look. It seems to me that, Biden inserted himself into a situation where he had a clear conflict of interest. Now,
Bingo.
the fact that somebody has a conflict of interest doesn't necessarily mean they will do anything that's illegal or unethical. If what they're saying is true, then they should welcome an investigation, because if they can prove that, then he'll look pretty good. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, Chris, I think that's a judicious, prudent approach to the facts. Do you agree with that from Andy McCarthy?
I'm always for looking into things that people are concerned about. I have no problem with that. What I am concerned about is the president using his office to assert pressure on a foreign government for political gain.
You're
and
making
sending
a
people
statement.
who are not
No,
representatives.
no. You're making a statement, Chris, that is not borne out by the evidence. That's what Rudy was talking about. I get you want that to be true.
This man is a
That's
joke.
not what happened.
I'm saying I'm against that. Look, I'm against that. And we don't know what happened with Biden, and we're against it. That was bad. We're against that too. And I'm against. Look, I don't like getting into this fight with Mayor Giuliani. I had a lot of respect for him. We worked kind of near each other when I was a young aide to Senator Schumer right after 9/11, and I admired everything you did at that point. And when I see you doing it now, it saddens me, and it saddens most New Yorkers, because you are ruining your reputation, Mr. Mayor, and it is time for you to take a step back and maybe stop going on like this.
Well,
I'm not going to.
It makes me sad. It really does.
Okay, all right.
Well, you should be.
Talking about people's reputations is not helpful.
Yeah, and also accusing.
It makes all New Yorkers sad.
Is there any chance that he will stop interrupting people?
Yeah, okay.
Can we get him under control?
Rudy, go ahead. Close it out. We got
So
about 20
that man
seconds.
made a very serious accusation about me that's totally false, that I was deputized by the State Department to get involved in getting an investigation on a political opponent. That is not at all what the State Department called me about. That isn't what I did. What he said was totally false. I watched him on this network do totally false things before, and you may have had respect for me, but I don't have any respect for you. Now, the simple fact is that Joe Biden committed enormously serious crimes. That's going to be the end result. Well, I'm going to tell you.
We don't know that either.
Go
Okay.
ahead,
Okay.
Rudy.
I
just think
probably know more of the evidence than any of you do. I have seen.
Okay, let
You've
Rudy,
seen nothing.
let you
You've read
close it
the
out.
Drudge
I'm trying to
Report.
apply the same standards to everybody, to the president and to Biden, but I haven't seen all the documents.
Well, okay, I've seen the laundered payment of $3 million. I've seen the receipts of the payments that went from China for $1 billion and then $500 million to Biden's son, who shouldn't be running any private equity fund. I kind of think I understand the Chinese. I don't think they gave it to him for his financial expertise. There's only one reason left: to compromise the Vice President of the United States.
We gotta go, guys.
That is disgraceful. Mr. Hahn will now yell, scream, and say all kinds of false things, but that's
I'm not going to
disgraceful.
yell. I'm sad.
Well,
Sad for this country.
I'm sad that we just stick to the facts, and I know everyone gets very emotional.
Well,
We're getting under attack.
You don't have to put
Chris,
somebody like that on who makes flamboyant charges that are totally false.
I'm doing my best.
All
All right, guys, thank you very much
Sorry.
tonight. Andy,
You're a
thank you
disgrace.
to all of you. There's so much more to unpack on this big break.